With regard to GMT watches, we live in a world of choice, and we're pretty spoiled. Tudor has given us 4 separate GMT watches in pretty rapid succession. There's a lot to love for each of them. Those of you that complain about the snowflake hand, I can't help you here, but for the rest of us, we love Tudor's strong military history, their vintage-inspired, rugged good looks. GMTs are also just cool, probably one of the most useful complications out there, especially for somebody who travels. Plus, the addition of the 4th hand on the dial just makes for a much more interesting aesthetic. All 4 GMTs in this video have their own merits, as you'll see, and choosing one can be a little bit of analysis paralysis, so hopefully I can help. I'm going to eliminate them one at a time until I get to the Tudor GMT that I ended up buying with my own money. Look, watch buying decisions can make you pull your hair out. Sometimes it's helpful to get some other people's opinions. And this has never been easier now that we have the Watch Crunch app. You can do a search or post a question for the community to chime in. If you haven't checked out the best online platform for watch nerds yet, come join the discussion. The first Tudor we'll look at is also the oldest of the bunch. Tudor released the full-fat Black Bay GMT in 2018, and it immediately became a crowd favorite because this watch takes on that classic Rolex Pepsi colorway. And Tudor recently updated this model with a COSC-certified movement, and we have many variants now, including a opaline white dial. The Black Bay GMT is just a classic-looking watch at most angles. Small details I really enjoy are like the fully painted red GMT hand, helping it to stand out against the other hands on the dial at a glance. Watching that big snowflake hour hand jump around with the Flyer GMT movement is so satisfying. It makes for advancing or retarding the time when you land in a new time zone a breeze. The two-tone bezel rotates, allowing the tracking of 3 separate time zones. And its aluminum finish is reminiscent of Rolex's first Pepsi GMT Master released in 1954, made for Pan Am airline pilots in the nascent jet age. But there's one big problem for this watch that precludes it from my wrist, and that is its size. Standing at 41 millimeters wide and 14.5 thick with a lug-to-lug of greater than 50, this is a big chunky watch. I'm just not gifted enough in the wrist department to pull it off. I'm jealous of you guys with wrists bigger than 7 inches because, damn, it's a good-looking watch. Second on our list is one of those watches I sold but have been tempted to buy back every time I see somebody post about it on Instagram. This is the Black Bay Pro, and it is a looker. Modeled after the Rolex Explorer 2 reference 1655, this vintage-inspired tank of a watch looks like it just emerged from down beneath. That's because it's got this fixed 24-hour bezel that is originally designed to help spelunkers keep track of day versus night inside of caves. Now, Caden, our new addition to the channel, has this watch, and he says that after he dropped it on his kitchen tile floor and got it dented and scratched, he loved it even more. And I think that's the vibe that you get from the Black Bay Pro. It feels bulletproof, and even though the bezel does not turn and loses the ability to track a 3rd time zone, its fixed steel construction almost acts like a guard for the box sapphire crystal. My favorite thing about this watch is its style, with applied lume blocks and a big old yellow GMT hand serving as its focal point. If you look closely, rather than being a stick, that GMT hand is actually a big triangle that tapers as it reaches towards the periphery, ending with a square to fit that snowflake theme. The vintage theme also continues in its riveted bracelet, and because this is a newer Tudor release, we get the marvelous T-Fit quick adjust system, allowing for on-the-go refittings. The one shortcoming of the Black Bay Pro that is pretty well known at this point is its thickness. It's got pretty much the same thickness as the Black Bay Pepsi GMT we just talked about, but because it's down a couple mils in the width department at 39, this thickness is more pronounced. Looking at it from the side, it's just a slab of metal. Is it too thick? Well, I'd say when you're wearing it on the wrist and not sort of staring at it in your hand, it's less noticeable. But it's definitely not ideal if you want it to slip under cuffs. And if they ever made this watch a couple mils thinner, this list might look very different. Well, Tudor seems to have heard our complaints about the Black Bay Pro, and last year they refined their GMT formula by releasing the Black Bay 58 GMT. Proportionally, this watch is perfect. They were able to whittle down the MT5450 GMT movement to shave almost 2 millimeters off the thickness of the case. And at 12.8, this watch is no longer gonna fight your sleeves and just feels more refined on the wrist. The aesthetics is a similar vintage twist as the full-size Pepsi, but with now a Coke black and red combination. Now, Tudor bracelets are great, and I've mostly gotten over the faux rivets over time, but here I tried switching it up with a FKM rubber strap from Strap Habit. The red matches that bezel nicely, and it features a deployant clasp to hide the dreaded dangly tail of the strap end. In fact, lately, Strap Habit has been my go-to place for economical straps, ever since I met the owner Nick at a watch fair. He's just a nice dude, so when I reached out to him, he graciously offered to sponsor this video. I always say straps are like the clothing for your watch. For example, I was gonna sell my SBGX Grand Seiko because the watch was just getting a little bland for me, but Nick suggested that I try the white FKM rubber, and bam, I am in love again. Now, we know Grand Seiko loves the odd lug widths, but Strap Habit offers all these odd sizes like 19s and 21s. So head over to Strap Habit, after watching the video, of course, and use the code CRUNCH15 to get your watch some new clothing. Okay, back to the BB58 GMT. So the big hubbub with this release has been all the gilt markings on the bezel and the dial. It honestly can be a little bit much on the gold department. And one detail I wish they retained from the Pepsi GMT was the red GMT hand, because here it's the same color as the rest of the hands. It can get a little bit lost visually. So you'll have to decide for yourself how much gilt is too much gilt. But what we have to acknowledge and give Tudor some credit for is that year after year, they've been able to refine these watches with better movements, thinner cases, and Metas chronometer certification, quick adjusting clasp, but not really increase the price by very much. At about $4,500, you're getting Rolex level finishing and history for less than half the price. Good on you, Tudor. So why isn't this the end of the video? I have to be honest, the BB58 GMT makes a lot of sense on paper, but it never kind of give me the fizzies. I admire this watch for its perfect proportions, but I've been wearing a different Tudor a lot more lately, and that's our final contender. Buying the new Pelagos FXD GMT wasn't a decision from the head. This was from the heart. But I'll try to rationalize for you. See, one big visual difference is that the 58 line mixes round hour markers with square snowflakes. This has always bothered me a little bit. The Pelagos line, on the other hand, holds true to Tudor's historic dial design with squares for all of the elements. And there's just like a visual consistency there for my OCD brain. The Pelagos line traces this design directly back to the 1970s Tudor Submariners made for the Marine Nationale, or French Navy. This historical relationship continues to today and is reflected in the insignia found on the back of the watch. And compared to the regular FXD, the addition of that orange GMT hand makes the watch much more interesting to look at. And the lume on the GMT is not stark white like the regular FXD. Instead, they've added a hint of smoky patina that's just enough to take the edge off. Now, you might ask, why did I disqualify the 41mm Black Bay Pepsi GMT but landed on the 42mm FXD GMT? Well, this is where numbers only tell half the story. See, the wide matte finish 24-hour bezel on the FXD sits about a millimeter wider than the watch case. And the case is made of titanium, which is not just more corrosion resistant, it's also darker, giving it more sort of a stealthy look. It's also lighter, and without a bracelet option, it's not quite the wrist weight the Pepsi GMT presents. It's still a big watch, don't get me wrong, with lug-to-lug of 50, but it feels like a professional instrument on the wrist, an instrument that's supposed to be big. But it is not perfect. With fixed lugs, bracelets are not an option. For a lot of people, that's an automatic disqualification. The green strap that Tudor ships with it is a little flimsy, it's okay, but I had to try it on our Zero Pass strap. Yes, we do have an FXD specific version now, and by removing the material under the case, it sits so much better against the skin. So I think I might have finally found my forever Tudor. But what do you guys think? Which one of these would you guys choose? Let me know in the comments below. Take it easy. See you in the next one.